Okay, my outstanding friends, I did a video this morning about moons and our moon and all the other moons and Iapetus specifically. However, in that video, I messed up. I wasn't focused in correctly here and there, so I took it down. I'm doing it over again, and I'm going to expand on it because I want to bring in, first of all, I was talking about the moons. What is in space? What is out there? We know there's planets, we know there's a sun, we know there's moons, we know there's comets and asteroids and meteorites, and where did all that come from, and what is it made of? Can we make any real good, firm determination of where all of this stuff originated? And I think we can now. So let's take a look at it. And again, I'm sorry if you've already seen some of this, but it's going to be vastly expanded on right now. All right, so let's get started. Okay, so as I said, I was just going to do Iapetus and some moons and leave it at that, but I'm going to go a lot deeper because everything in space that I have found, I can relate to everything else. And how do I relate it? Well, I'm going to show you right now. And I'm going to just blurt it right out right now. If you've been following me, you know that my claim is that the Earth is basically 100% biological. There's nothing here. The rocks are just not just rocks. They came from biology. That's what mud fossils are. And as far as I can determine, everything there is based on biology. Even like this today, somebody popped this out, this heart. That's a heart. That's the webbing of the heart muscle. It's just exactly like that. And there's the tubes in the heart that come out the top. Everybody now is starting to understand that, and there's still a lot of pushback. I mean, people are just furious about this. And I was just in a couple of groups. They allowed me to post, which is very unusual. I've been blocked basically everywhere, but I was allowed to post, and I was just attacked like you can't believe. I just decided, well, the hell with it. I'm just going to block all these people that attack over and over and over, very nasty insults, and and I'm showing evidence. And so they're not looking at the evidence; they're just upset that it changes the way that they have to, comprehend what they see now. And if they just can't allow themselves to look, well, then they're done as far as I'm concerned. You better start searching, because there's a lot more to this life than just breathing oxygen for whatever number of years and then it doesn't turn back into dust. No. This is a learning experience. These things are for you to see and for everyone as a test. That's what it is. This is a test. Okay, I showed you this heart, and that's the tube. There's just a short tube that comes down and it glues in to where the valves are below. And I think I can show you another place that there is a tube, and of course the webbing. Ayers Rock, Uluru, is a heart as well, a gigantic heart. I mean, absolutely enormously gigantic. But it has the same webbing as that, which is heart muscle. You see that? That's cardiac muscle. And it erodes and leaves these little voids here and there, like this. That's Ayers Rock, Uluru. And this is the cardiac muscle, the sarcomere type muscles, the parts that pull in. This is just the flesh that coats it, and it's eroded away. Obviously, you can see that. And but it's the same stuff as this right here. It's basically the same thing. And that tube is here. Now, there's another thing in Australia, and I can't remember the name of it, but it came up yesterday or a few days ago, and there's this. I mean, this is absolutely gigantic. These are trees down here. That thing is, and I believe that is the tubing that comes out of the top of the heart. I believe that, and it's running off here, and I believe it's the red blood side of the heart. And that tube is just basically like this tube right here. All right. Now, these glue into a set of valves. So they're just like little tubes. And all this gooey stuff here is to glue them in, literally to glue that stuff in there so that it can move around and be floppy, but it's still glued in and they're never going to pull out of there, hopefully. If it does, it's going to be a bad day. No. There's a ton of vessels and blood vessels and little arteries and veins and everything running around here because you service the heart. The heart itself sucks in blood, uses blood. All right, it pumps blood, but it also uses blood to make its muscle work. And here's what it looks like when it's, here's what it is. And this is that tube that I'm talking about. That tube that was laying on the side like this. But this is all the blood that is required to make the heart work. Inside there's a couple of bags, and they pump, and there's one valve can go this way and one valve can go that way. And it's all wrapped up in a band, and it twists and it squirts blood through your body. Now, if this rips out of there, you're done. It's all over. Case is closed for you. That's why all that goo is up on the top, which I showed you. All right, and that's this gooey stuff right here. Now, if there was a heart in outer space, that stuff is kind of floppy. That would go away. The tubing and the valves, well, the tubing will go away too, because it did. This right here, the white stuff, that's tendon. That is tough. That does not go away. And guess where it is? It's on asteroid Bennu, which I've shown 100 times recently. If I can find asteroid Bennu. Hold on one second. All right, I know I've been showing this a lot lately, but it needs to be shown in everything in its entirety. And this is Bennu. They just took a sample from this asteroid, and it's going to be blood because this is a heart. That right there is a tendon I showed you, that white stuff. This is the colors of blood. They were right up there. They took a little piece of it, and it's here back on Earth now. They're analyzing it, and I can tell you right now, it's going to be exactly the composition of blood. And that's why you see this red and this black and this yellow. That's the colors of blood, red, black, and yellow. And this is a heart, and it's completely saturated with blood. This, right up here, if you can see, these are little tendons. You see them coming down in here? That's what locks this muscle in so that the muscle can do its pumping and it doesn't get ripped out of the heart. That's what a tendon is. These are valves. And that is a tube. That's not a crater. That is a tube. All right, look at it carefully. That's coming out. That's not a crater going in. And so is this. All right, now don't forget, all wrapped around this heart, there is a zillion blood vessels, and they blow out. These are, some of them might be craters, yes, but a lot of these are just little blood vessels popping. And that's what happens to them. They're everywhere. I showed you, they're just saturated with blood vessels. And when you see these different colors, especially when you see this nice round looking thing right around there, that is probably the vein. And that is probably an artery area. Because they have to have both. You have to have blood servicing and then pulling it back out. The artery services, the vein pulls out the used blood. So that's why you have these colors. Now, you don't have to be a heart surgeon to understand this. These are heart valves. So are those. So are these. This, if you broke off the plumbing at the top here, you would be down where the valves are. All right? Because I showed you, if you broke off that plumbing up at the top, that's where the valves go in. So we are living in a biological universe. And again, I think I showed you, this is what heart muscle is after it erodes. And that's why it's so red. It's just saturated with red blood. And red blood makes things grow very green. You see this? This is Ayers, Luru. You see where the water's running off? How green it is? That's the nature of blood. They sell blood meal. You put it on your plants, they grow green like crazy. It works very well. It's nitrogen, and it infuses instantly. And then they also sell feather meal. And feather meal also is rich with nitrogen, makes things grow very well, except it lasts a lot longer. The feathers don't break down as fast as the blood meal. And why? You ask why? Well, thank you for asking why, first of all. And the reason is blood has all the transition metals in it. It's saturated with metals. It's virtually almost 100% metal, except for the fluids. There's iron and every other. I showed the panels of chemistry that they do for metals that are in the blood. It's just stunning, the amount of metals. And that's why instantly that pushes, those metals are ligands. Or, well, they carry ligands around. The metals, well, I better show you, hold on. If you're going to be with me, you're going to learn, okay? Either go somewhere else where you see some spectacular thing. If you're with me, I'm going to make statements, and then you are going to learn. All right, this is why I say the heart and blood is just saturated with metals. This is the whole blood and plasma and serum and all of that. And they're looking for what's in this plasma. All of these, every one of those is a metal. It's just saturated with metals. And iron is just, it's loaded with iron. And they're all on the different states of iron, FeO2, FeO3, and then you get into this... the serum, which is the lymph, and that's yellow. So you got red, you got black, and you got yellow. That's what's in blood. Now, I showed you Ben-U, red, black, and yellow. That's the colors of blood. And this was from a stone, a rock. It was a heart. And my friend cracked it open, and it's there it is. It's a heart. And then after an hour or so, it turned into this right here. This deoxygenated and turned black like the vein blood. Serum doesn't change, the lymph. But this is a heart. These are the same valves that I'm showing you in the hearts that are up on Psyche, which is the metal, 100% metal. And because of blood, I just showed you, it's virtually 100% metal. And fluids. And now I'm going to show you what transition metals are and how they carry things around your body. I told you, if you're going to stick with me, you're going to learn. All right? So this is metal because it's metal. Blood is metal. And this is also metal because blood is metal, and this is another heart. And there's your colors. Your brown, your yellow, black, reddish. And this is being irradiated, so there's going to be some differences that you wouldn't see here on Earth in a person's body. So the chemistry that you're going to see that I just showed you of all of those, well, let me just show you again because it goes way deep here. This shows every single type of metal and the concentrations, how much there is, and the means, and the concentration, and the this and the that. I mean, it's very, very detailed of all of these things in whole blood versus plasma versus serum. So I don't know where they landed up there, but one of those places, wherever they took it from, off of Ben-U, they took blood. Of that, there is no question whatsoever. So all I want to see is what the analysis is. It's going to be virtually 100% metal. And they already said they found clay, which clay is nothing more than eroded flesh. That's what clay is. So they found some clay. They found all of the things. A lot of phosphorus, which is every membrane is made out of phosphorus. So they found all of the things so far, but they haven't analyzed every little detail of those metals. That's what I want to see. All right, there's a luru again. This is nothing more than cardiac muscle. It's pocketed just like that. It is what it is. It's where is it? Here it is right here. This is cardiac muscle. rectangular brick-shaped cardiac muscle fibers, and they erode out of there. And because this is the cheap stuff. This is this webbing is the integrity of the heart. These rest of them, these pull in. These little blocks pull in. That's what they're basically sarcomeres, but in a heart it's a little bit different. But notice these are the things that are going to run out, and these are the things that are going to, this webbing will be all over the place, which it is. Bada bing. It's a heart. It's a good size, but it's still a heart. And don't forget, all of this blood makes everything grow green as green can possibly be. And now we're going to get into the chemistry. Why that stuff is growing so green coming out of here. So let's get into the chemistry of transition metals. All right, these are the transition metals, which I showed you the heart is nothing more than metal. It's just a big ball of metal. All right, very, very simple. Bacteria in your body, in your gut primarily, and in your immune system, is the factory that produce enzymes. Enzymes are the only thing that can break down these molecules quick enough to make life work. Enzymes are a catalyst. They accelerate the rate of reactions by well over 1,000,000-fold. So reactions that would take years, but they would happen, but they would take years unless you had that catalyst. It occurs in fractions of a second if catalyzed by the appropriate enzyme. If you don't have the enzyme, it's not going to happen. You're not going to be able to do what's called nucleophilic invasion. So you have to have the enzyme, the bacteria, to produce the enzyme, and the enzyme creates this instantaneous reaction. And what is that instantaneous reaction? It's transition metals grabbing a hold of these different molecules and sending them here and there. I don't think they realize what's going on yet. They're saying catalysts, which is this enzymes, by transition metals, has provided an attractive solution to a variety of important problems in organic synthesis. There's no problems here. You just have to have the right bacteria to create the right enzymes to do the chemistry. In zillions of a second, they can break down all these things. It's called nucleophilic invasion. All right? It's a nucleophilic substitution. It comes in, and all new chemical goes in there, and the rest gets pushed out millions of times faster. And so if you don't have the enzyme, you're just not going to get the chemistry. You don't have the chemistry, your body's not going to function correctly. There's no other way to put it. All right, so we're going to be talking about transition metals and catalysts, which are enzymes, and they accelerate the rate of reactions well over 1,000,000-fold. So the reactions would take years to happen without these enzymes as catalysts. It can occur in fractions of a second, having the appropriate enzyme. So that's what we're looking at, is the enzymes that come from the bacteria, and then the metals use those enzymes to do nucleophilic invasion and substitution. I talk about this all the time, and I just want to be sure, hopefully you understand. I'll try to make it very simple, because it is simple. It is simple if you make it simple. The catalyst, by transition metals, has provided an attractive solution to a variety of important problems. When they say catalyst, and they're thinking the transition metal is the catalyst, it sounds to me. And it's not that way. It is an enzyme is the catalyst. The transition metal delivers and picks up. And it's because it has charges. They're nucleophiles and electrophiles. All right? And it's nucleophilic substitution. Talk about it all the time. They invade other molecules, and then they substitute their little bits and pieces because they're charged particles. All right, so these are the transition metals that work with the catalysts, and they drag things around your body because they're in the blood. All this is in your blood. It's all in your blood. And it brings stuff down and delivers it using these charged, they're looking for extra electrons. All right, these have plus charges, so they're looking for particles that have excess electrons, and then they bring them and deliver them, and they pick something up. It's a little bit complicated as far as chemistry goes, but all you have to understand is the metals that flow through your body, through your bloodstream, carry things. Here's what it says. Transition metals form colored compounds and complexes. The colors vary depending upon the charge on the metal ion. These are metal ions. And the number and type of groups of atoms called ligands. Those are the little things they grab onto. They pinch them. I call them pinchers. The ligands are pinchers. So these are the groups of atoms called ligands attached to the metal ion. So the metal core is here, and these attach. They just stick to it. Depends on how many different charges you have. And they form colored complexes. And this is to transition. This is to go and do nucleophilic substitution and invasion. And that is how your body works. It's right now, it's going on like crazy. And these enzymes are the key to making it all function quickly enough to work. Otherwise, it's just never going to happen. Never, ever, 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 ever would your body work without the enzymes. So that's why they can be, healthy people have good digestive systems, they have good enzymes and so forth. But anyway, this is the blood meal. And blood meal is nothing more these metals. And it works so fast to make things green because the blood itself carries around all these little nutrients in the water right away. It carries it right away. Now, feather meal is a little different. It doesn't have all the blood metals in it, but it has a lot of nitrogen. And the nitrogen seeps in and makes things grow green for very, very long times. As I will show you right now for Quetzalcoatl, his feathers are still extremely green. Okay, if you've been around me, you know about Quetzalcoatl. He runs all the way up the East Coast. It's a dragon who was the feathered serpent. And here's his head. And the reason it is a different color than around it, this is where the blood ran off. All right, this is like dragon scales or something. It's a different type of chemistry. But here's his throat, running down here, all the way down, all the way down, all the way down around, and it comes down around, all the way down around, and then up the East Coast. These are his beards. Now, remember I said feather meal makes things grow very green for long periods of time. He goes all the way up the East Coast. And the Green Mountains are his feathers. You see those? Those are his feathers. The Green Mountains. Because they're green, because they're releasing nitrogen into the soils as they degrade. These are big feathers. And he also had a feathered headdress, which sticks straight up, and I'll show you the feathers there. These are the feathers of his feathered body. And there's his throat running all the way around, all the way up the East Coast. Now here's the feathers coming off his head. He had a feathered headdress. All right, and there should be some feathers here somewhere we can see. All right, there's some pretty good feathers right there. You see that? These are feathers. Running right down, running right down, running right down. Very green. All the way up to here. You can see where the very sharp greenness is where the feathers were. Let's see if that settles in. See it? Not only that, they look scaled here and there, like the dragon in Morocco has scaled feathers. It has feathers too, but they're scaled, and it's only on his tail. This one has feathers his whole body. And these are his beards. And he spit this stuff out into the Gulf here, created this zone of death. Nothing can grow here. It's a zone of death. And he spit that out right into the Gulf here. So there's your feather meal. And the only reason this is still nice and green like this is because it takes a long time for feathers to degrade. And the blood meal is different. Now Typhon over here, we're talking about blood. All this stuff down here underneath him is all his blood running off. And here's the dragon right there. Here's his throat. Shown this hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. I've never had one single question from academia or NASA or anybody. I presented, I said, you guys can see this from the space station. I know you can. I know they can see this. Now, if you can't see this, all I can say is a vast amount of incompetence. I can't even believe anybody could possibly deny what they're seeing here. And it's attacking this fish, all written about in the ancient texts. And here's the tail. You see how it has a real green way over here? This tail runs out. Here's the dragon scales. You see these are dragon scales? And this is the blood running off. It's those metals in the blood, because this is a swale. What that means is that the blood ran down into this little, swale. And then it has to run somewhere, so it's sort of flushed out. But these are dragon scales. You see how intricate they are? Look at the colors. Look at that. You see those things? And they're all the same. And they have, on the outside, they have this plating. I don't know what it's made of. But they're all basically the same. Now that's not just hills and valleys. And way at the end, it has, excuse me, a feathered tail. If you go way to the very end, right here. And now this has the scales built into it. Let's see if I can find a spot. Excuse me. All right, here we go. The green is the feathers. All right. Now these are a little different because I can see there's all kind of dragon scales built into them somewhere around here. Yeah, see this? This is where it starts into the feathers. So it looks like it goes from scales. Because these are definitely scales. Into feathers. It comes way out here, and then it starts to transition. It's still kind of dragony. You see it? Look at that. And then apparently it transitions into feathers right about here. Almost like it abruptly stops and turns into feathers. I don't know. But these other things are feathers. And see how they're growing things in here, because the feather meal is an excellent fertilizer. These are feathers of a sort. I mean, of a dragon sort. Up here you can see some a strange world we live in, my friends. Look at this. What the heck is going on there? Holy smokes, I never saw that before. That's some form of an organ, I would say. I don't think that's part of his tail. I wouldn't think. Have to give it some serious look, but I don't know. Could it have been attached to his tail? It's right there. This is what you call an abrupt transition. I don't think that's from farming. That is something to look into. You see all those colors? Those are those transition metals. These are transition colors. This is from bodily fluids and flesh and feathers and all kinds of things. That, look at this over here. Holy mackerels. And where you see these abrupt transitions, you know something changed there very rapidly. And that's how the body works. You have layers and layers and layers of tissue. Look at that round thing right there. I look for round things and these kind of crazy structures, and then how did this get sewn into here like this? That's how the body works. It like, there's tubes running everywhere in your body, and they're basically glued in together. So at any rate, this runs all the way from his tail all the way back to his head right here. This is the dragon's head. And this is his throat. Runs all the way down, all the way down, all the way down, all the way down, and then right here it gets cut. This is just bodily fluids, like moisture running out as he decays. All right. The scales are back here. This is where his throat starts. This down here is nothing but runoff. You see that? It's just nothing but fluids. It's just fluids. It's just bodily decomposition. Fluids running out. But back here, different story. This is his throat. And this is the scales that protect his throat. And he died, and he's sort of rotting into the ground and decaying off all those fluids. This is his nose. This is his red flared eye. All right, and all this fluffy stuff running all the way down his body. That's what you see in the parades in China and places like that. They had that. And that yellow stuff is where all the toxin comes out. This was where his throat was cut. And that's why you see the black and the red. That's the colors of blood. That's the colors of true blood. This is the color of, just decomposition. That's just decomposition. See the difference in color? You have to know what you're looking at. This is two different states of iron. The black is the vein type of iron, which has gotten rid of all of its oxygen, or the extra oxygen, and this still has the extra oxygen, the red. And that's why things grow green right here. You see that? That's why it's growing green right here, because of the blood. And that was it's in the ancient text. It talks about Typhon, who I believe this is Typhon. And he said he was this big. He's 1,100 miles long. So, and then the fish down here is what he was attacking. And it said he was attacking the gods, and the gods changed themselves into animals to try to get away. And this one didn't get away. It turned itself into a fish and got hit with some venom. All that stuff is toxic venom from this dragon. You see that stuff? All that stuff came down from the dragon's mouth. Down to the fish. Right here. And it ate right into his back. And it ate right into where we can see the blood vessels and everything else right in here. You see this? Get a doctor. Get somebody who knows what they're doing. Get a doctor and say, is this an artery, sir? Are these blood vessels? Are these capillaries? Is this a vein? And then even these little tiny, tiny things right here. These are little lymph ducts. Nobody's ever seen these before. These are lymph ducts. They pull the lymph, which is just the tiniest bits of fluid. They're so small that they can't take anything in other than basically the fluid. And that's what the lymph is, where all your bodily fluids run through your body, outside of the blood vessels and arteries and veins. And that was because it ate right through his flesh, or his scales, right down to his body. And that's what it is. Here's the dragon right here. And here's the fish. You can come up and look at it. And I showed you Quetzalcoatl and his feathers. And we talked about transition metals. Being the source of a nucleophilic substitution and invasion, which means that you can make these things work.
Don't forget to...
All right, so that's your chemistry lesson, your biology lesson. We've seen the transition metals, we've seen the heart muscle, we've seen what it looks like anatomically. We know that these are both made out of metals, and we have a sample of Bennu here on Earth right now, so we should be able to find out if that is, in fact, blood, which I'm certain it is, because that's what a heart is, and that's a heart. And we looked at Uluru and all of the red blood running off, creating the green. We saw how that works. I believe that tube is the same as this tube. This is in Australia too. And I believe that tube is from some gigantic, gigantic heart. And that's the same tube as what we were just looking at before. These tubes right here. All right. As far as I can tell, there is nothing that isn't biology. This is Ayers rock, Uluru. It's just nothing more than the coating of flesh that surrounds the heart. It's just saturated with blood, 100% blood. And here's all these little spots. I believe these are vein valves. Veins have veins have black blood, and they have a little pincher that says you can only go one direction, you can't come back. Arteries is different. You can go back and forth. Doesn't make any difference. And then again, this was the heart. There's the webbing. Well, just like we saw before. These are the tubes, just like we saw. I mean, this is not hard to understand if you just open your mind even the tiniest little bit. Look at this. This is something that was a flexible tube that was allowed a tubing piece to come into the heart, or it was one of the little arteries that ran down the side. This is what hearts have, all these little plumbing things. And when they break right off here, you're right down at the valves. And that's where we are with Bennu and Psyche, right at the valves. Now, this right here is a hip joint. You see the ball and this break right here? There's one of these in space. It's called Comet 67P. It's this ball, this neck, broken off to right about here, and it still has some tendon and stuff with it. All right, so here's the tendon. Let me see if I can find it. Here it is right here. This is what we're looking at. It has some tendon and a little bundle of tendon coming up the side, and the ball, and it broke off right about here. So this is what we're going to see. Can I show you that in space? I think I can. All right, here it is right there. there's the ball, there's the shaft. It's broken off right about here, and this is part of the bone too. They break in different places. Some can break here, some break over here, some break this way. But that's the whole key right here. This is biological, and when it gets in the right sunlight, it cooks off just like a barbecue grill. And all the guys that have ever walked in space, they say when they come back in from a spacewalk, their suits smell like burnt metals and steak, which is nothing more than what I just showed you in the blood profile and the transition metals, a burning steak. You see this? When these things come through the solar system, comets, as they're approaching, they're darker. You know, there's no fluff to them. There's none of this stuff coming out. Well, they always thought it was just dust blowing off them because of coming into what they call a solar wind. No, this is from radiation. This is being cooked, and it's going down inside this huge blood vessel, which is an artery, and it's shooting out gases. These are the little blood vessels that service all of the tissue around that hip joint. And some of them shoot out this way, some of them shoot this way, this way, up. Most of them go up to interact with the rest of the muscle that's down below. This is just a ball that sits in the socket. So there's nothing burns off of there because that's just a hard ball. It doesn't have a lot of blood in it. It's just an anchor, a socket. Well, it's a ball. Okay, let's go through this one more time. There's the ball up inside the socket. There's a tendon bundle and some tendon stuff running down, and then it broke off somewhere down around here. Now, here's what it looks like. Here's that tendon bundle right there. You see that round bundle and these little pinchy. Those are fibers. This is a rope bundle. These here are also tendons. They're very tough, strappy tendons. All right, and they snapped off right here when the thing just broke in the back. This is that little bundle that came to. You have to be able to pull against this way and that way, and that's what these tendons do. This is nothing more than the ball. This is just eroded blood cells and so forth. It's just dust, basically. And that doesn't blow off of there. When they shoot out the gases, they're shooting out from the gigantic artery. That's 500 feet across. And these are the little blood vessels. But the sun has to hit it just at the right angle. And then it spews these gases. And the thing keeps moving, so it looks like it's just being dusted off. Those are the things that they're smelling out in space when they go out and they smell it. Now here's what that blood vessel looks like. This is 40 meters, is this wide. It's about 500 feet across. And every one of these little balls is what they call dragon balls. And those little balls are where it feeds the blood into the tissues. All right, you have so many you have so many cells in your body. Every one of them has to be continuously flushed with blood. It's amazing how intricate it is. Now, so I showed you all these things, and I showed you this. This is the hip, and it broke off up in here somewhere, right across here. There must have been some kind of serious violence. Now look at this. This is Raleigh, North Carolina. And there's Comet 67P. Now, they landed what they called a Philae lander right on here, and they did take some tests. And it was nothing but organic biology. They knew that. They said, yeah, it has all the signatures of the iron, which is the different irons that are in the body. And I had the spectral analysis of it somewhere. But anyway, it is what it is, and it is a hip joint. And these are hearts. and moons as well, as I showed. Iapetus is what I started out to do today. Iapetus has this ridge. Nobody can explain it. You see this ridge here? And then it's got a couple of big round spots on it. That's Iapetus. It's a moon. And originally it was lost in space. When they first saw it, they could see it. This was 300, 400 years ago almost. And they could see it, and then all of a sudden it went dark. They couldn't see it anymore. It's just gone. Well, what happens is a white side and a dark side. When it flips to the dark side, it doesn't bounce back at you. You don't see it. And then when it comes back around to the white side, all of a sudden there it is again. So that's solved. And they went up there and they sent a Cassini space probe up there. And yes, that is what's happened. Now look at all these. I know that I'm going to show this again, or I have shown it before. Every one of these has one of these little anchor spots. And it was anchored to just like this. They had a strap coming to the ball, the anchors. And all that wrinkly stuff is this wrinkly stuff. These are not all impact craters. There's just nothing but impacts 1,000,000 times a day. No. A lot of that is just this wrinkly stuff that's part of the investment of the ball. All that tissue grows around it. It hits into these pockets. You can't pull that ball out. You're never going to pull it out. These will break, but the ball, they're in there for life. All right, so that's the tendon balls, and then of course the ones I messed up on. Let me just show you what I was showing. These balls are in the walls everywhere. These are the same balls like that are moons. The same balls, and in us, they're so microscopic you can barely see them with the best electron microscopes. And they're going up here looking for, the moon has also got one of these craters on it. Hold on, I think this is our moon right here. All right, that's not an impact crater. That's a pulled off. You normally have those things right in here, and I believe that's the vein and that's the artery. Artery doesn't have any little clamp in the center. That does. And this is red and that's black, or it's just, maybe it's because it's in the shadow, but I think it is dark colored. And anytime you have a tendon going in from, well, I can show it to you. You're going to have these veins and arteries going in with it because it has to be serviced. I got it around here somewhere. Hold the fort. Hold on a second. All right. Anytime you go in to the tendon ball, you still have to have some vitality going on in there. You have to service this. And these are the ones that service it. And I believe one of them's red and one of them's black. I'm pretty sure that's what's going on here. And of course you have a lot of fibers going in here as well. But there's going to be blood coming in and out of there. And that, I think we just saw that right here. And veins have valves. So a vein, you can go only one way. You try to go back, and that valve's going to pinch. Arteries go back and forth, upside down or inside out, doesn't matter. That's pulled off of there. That is not an impact crater. All right, this is where I messed up last time. I'm showing Mimas, and there's the anchor right there for Mimas. And then this is Iapetus. This is the one I was going to really focus in on, is that ridge and the anchors. And this is basically the identical same thing. That spot right there is where the anchor comes in. This is the equatorial ridge, they call it, that surrounds Iapetus. It appears to me that it was well, they all appear to me that they were anchors in tendon balls. I call them tendon balls. I call them tendon anthesis. But all they are is anchors, and they had little straps on them. That's probably a strap there. And the straps came out, and they attached to muscles and whatever. But the flesh could move around this way. And it would always come back to where the anchor was. It's called interstitium now. They're baffled, have no idea why. They were saying that it's growing eggs. That's one of the last things I heard about these things. These are balls in the walls. And you see how all that green mossy stuff? Anytime you see that, usually that's from red blood. Red blood makes green moss, and green, everything green. And again, these are the balls in the straps. And there's ligaments, and there's tendons, and there's a rope style, and then there's a ponerosis. These are the rope style ones, where they come out in a round band. Now there's a ponerosis style, which is this right here. All right, that's a flat tendon. These are on your back and on your stomach and so forth. And they're flat tendons. But they anchor with these little straps and balls coming down through, literally down through the tendon. And then there's a ball on each one of these, and it anchors into muscle, basically, some kind of spot in your body. I'm not even actually sure where they anchor, but I don't think it's necessarily bone, because these are the flat ponerosis, like on your back and on your sides and your six-pack, basically, that type of thing. They're anchoring somewhere in there, and this one's ripped out of here. But that's the ball, and I believe these are the style of Iapetus, but I could be wrong. It's, as far as I'm concerned, there's no question. It's a tendon, anthesis of some sort. Now, this is how big they get here on Earth. Look at this. That's the same thing we were just looking at. There's the ball anchored. This has eroded away. That was fleshy something there, whatever it was that was locked into. And I think this could be, they leave a ridge there. I don't know. But I can tell you one thing. That right there is the strap leading down to the ball. There's another ball here. There are balls all over. They're all over the place. Because once you get into that area where you've got tendon, they all have to be, there's a whole batch of them. There's not just one or two. Now, you see this? This is like some kind of fleshy stuff. You see it all up in here? This is some kind of fleshy, muscly something. And there was another one right here. You see this round spot? It's just like this one coming down. And there would have been a core in the center of it, and the core, that's it right there, and it just broke. And I believe that one would have run down more than likely to this ball right here. It's too close to this one. There's probably another one on the other side that goes down to this one, but they're all over here. So this is a ponerosis tendon. And I showed you that just one more time. Here it is right there. That's the ponerosis tendon. And these were the things they were cutting down in Peru and making the walls. And they just leave these bumps. They break them right off here at the bumps. That's why they had these little bumps on the walls. They did some serious stuff using biology that was just starting to dry out after the Great Flood. Now, this is another place I screwed up on the last video. Now, look carefully. This is a splayed tendon. Here's where it locked in, right up here. You see how it's coming around and around, all the way around here, and then out. There had been a muscle here. Now, this tendon still has to be flexible. Now, look at how they did it. How cool is that? You see all that gooey stuff in between here? You see that? That allows this thing to move around like this, because these tendons are very, very, very tough. But it has to be able to flex around in your body when you're alive. So it has to have, these are what they call tight junctions, loose junctions. This is probably loose junctions because they're moving all the time. Tight junctions are your membranes. They don't want anything getting through there. And that's why membranes are so important. This is one of the Iapetus balls. The same thing as Iapetus. And of course, it's a little smaller. This is a finger. This is Umaro Maro. That right there, my friends, is what they call grip skin. All right, now they say, oh, that's just an artist's rendition. No, not really. They took hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pictures of this, and they made a composite. This is the tendon that runs from the apical tuft, this white strip, right down here to right here. That's where all that locks in, all those little tendon straps, and then all these little balls that I've been showing you. It locks in there so you can do this. This is the crease right here. All right, that's your knuckle. And coming down here is the main part of your finger. Now this is upside down, and we're looking at the bottom of the finger. This is where it comes right over the top of your knuckle. All right, the knuckle is like this. All right, and what are we seeing over here? We're seeing the very end where it comes down here to the vein and the artery. All right, and this right here is one here, or actually, I think these are the tendons. And that's the vein right there, the black one. And that would be the artery coming up. And that's how there's a ton of blood in fingers. Tons. All right, this is a giant hand. I have this here on my property. I had a DNA tested from a fingertip. I took the blood out. This is the grip skin. Remember I just talked to you about Umaro Maro having a grip skin? This is the stuff that peels off. And then there's a fleshy layer underneath. And it's all over your fingers, your palms of your hands, your toes, your feet. And that's the tough stuff that does work. But it peels off. It's a very weak attachment, basically. And it has no blood in it. All right, so you got to get down inside where the blood is to get it sampled. And that is on my property. It's close to 4 feet wide, I think. Well, actually, I'm showing 36 inches wide. It's a long time ago, but it's wide. And the fingertips and all that stuff I have. And I've had them CAT scanned, DNA tested. It's a human hand from a giant. And don't forget, this is Umaro Maro. That is the apical tuft where all these little tendons come up and clamp in. This is the grip skin. That's just the skin on your finger. It's just peeled away. That strap comes down to where all the little things invest in here. And that's the crease. And then there's the other side. It runs down. There's the vein, it's black, and there's the artery over there. And I don't know if you can see that well from this far away, but you see those two spots? And then way down at the bottom, on the right and on the left, those are your tendons. Now, in the artery and vein, let me show you what it looks like in your actual hand. That's where they come up. Artery and vein. As it's saturated with blood. Blood makes things preserve. Blood is the preservative. And it's because it has all the metals in it. And they seek stability by nucleophilic substitution. Okay, my friends, get ready. Another shocker du jour. Everybody looks at moons, and they say, well, moons are interesting. And then they look at these balls that are all over the Earth, and they say, well, what's going on with these? They're baffled. They have no idea what's causing these balls. But I'm going to tell you what, these balls are related to moons. I'm not kidding you. Wait till you see. Okay, if you like mysteries, you are in for a treat. Iapetus is Saturn's amazing disappearing moon. In 1671, they found this moon, Iapetus, when they built a new observatory, and this guy Cassini saw Iapetus, and he was viewing it, and he's looking at it and watching it, and all of a sudden it goes away. It's just gone. And there was no way he could possibly account for why you could see it and everything's fine and all of a sudden it's gone. It should have been right there and now it's not there anymore. Well, where'd it go? It ended up, and he was correct, and this was over 300 years ago. It ended up that he says one side has to be black and one side has to be white. And when the white side is facing us, we can see it. And when it spins around to where the black side is facing us, it's out of sight anymore. We just can't see it. So that's what happened, is the black and white. And they launched a mission called the Cassini probe to look at this, to try to figure out what's going on with Iapetus. Now, when I show you Iapetus, you are about to freak out. Okay, pay close attention to these two spots here and this ring it's around. Now let's take another look at Iapetus. Okay, here's that ridge around Iapetus. They have no clue why this is here. It goes all the way around the planet, and then there's those two huge crater-looking spots. Well, let me show you something. That, my friends, is biology. Okay, virtually all the moons have one of these attachments, and it was for a stalk to hold that tendon ball and stretch and pull. This is what tendon balls do. They anchor, and then there's a strap that pulls, and that strap just pulled right out. So you see these craters. Now I think this is Mimas or Tetchus, but they all have them. They're basically, as far as I can tell, most of them at least are tendon entices, which are these balls. Now this one's a Mimas, and it has the same thing. Now Tetchus, they all have the same sort of thing, basically. Now Tetchus is right over here. It's the same thing. They all have that attachment because they were all tendon balls, as far as I can tell. Now I believe this is our moon. As far as I can tell, they all have the same characteristic. They have one stalk which attached, and it got ripped out, and that was the attachment that held that ball as an anchor in some creature's body. Now see this? Pay real close attention here. That ball right there is identical to Iapetus. It has that ring around it, and then there's the stalk right there that attaches it. Now this is inside of flesh. That's flesh. This is not just dirt and rocks. This is the whole world, as far as I can tell. Everything there is was biology. Some of it has eroded and sediments have piled up. Yes, absolutely. But they have eroded from gigantic creatures' bodies. And that was, it appears to me that the Earth and even everything in space, all the comets, asteroids, meteorites, all biology. It's just what it is. And there's that stalk, and there's that strip. Now let's take a look at Iapetus again. All right, that's the surface of Iapetus. They went right up there, right real close to take a look at it, and that's the surface. Those are not craters. Those are little bumps and divots that lock in to the tissue so that that ball cannot pull out of there. I think this is our moon, but I'm not 100% certain. But I can tell you one thing. I believe this is the artery and that's the vein that are coming down in to service this ball through the strap. And the reason I say that is because of this. You see this? These are coming down into the ball to service it with blood and whatever else it needs. And you got to bring some in and bring stuff out. Everything in your body has to be continuously refreshed and given oxygen and glucose and all that stuff. And that's what it comes through this stalk right down in. And those are the two spots, which is basically what I just showed you here. These two spots here, I believe. This is not a crater. That's not a crater. That's ripped off. All right, they say all those craters everywhere. These are all craters on these moons. I disagree with that. I'm sure, certainly there's craters, but I say that they're mostly these kind of things right here. They're little wrinkly things and divots and bumps that lock this into tissue so that you can't pull that out. That's the whole thing with a tendon. You can't pull that ball out of there. You can break the straps, but the balls very, very rarely can be pulled out. So don't forget, they all have that sort of surface, and they all have this little round, place where the tendon locked into it. I mean, they all have it. And they're on Earth, they're everywhere on Earth, these balls, because Earth is nothing more than one gigantic creature as well. Now, how these tendon balls got out of creatures' bodies and were put into space as moons, I can't tell you how that happened. However, I can tell you that long ago they talked about sacrificing gods to make solar systems, to make planets, to sacrifice. That's why I'm looking into what's all that about sacrificing. He landed and he sacrificed to Zeus. Sacrifice what? What were they sacrificing? It sounds to me like they were sacrificing God's bodies and turned them into, realms, solar systems. That's what I can tell you. I have no idea. Other than that, that's what the ancient texts say. And I now go with those ancient texts because of finding Typhon in the desert in Morocco and finding Quetzalcoatl on the east coast of the United States and finding all of these things they wrote about. To a detail, to a very precise detail, they are here exactly as stated in the ancient texts. Exactly. Okay, my friends, I don't see any reason to go any further. You can see the sizes of these things. Typhon in the Moroccan desert is 1,100 miles long. So is Quetzalcoatl on the east coast of the United States. These creatures are just absolutely astronomically large. And it appears that there's bigger creatures that they could take tendon balls out that were this size. I mean, these things are absolutely stunningly large. For a tendon ball, which we need a microscope to see in us. And every creature that has tendons has these kind of balls in them. And some of these dragons, 1,100-mile dragon, these balls are going to be pretty good size, but some of these are even going to be bigger than what would be in a 1,100-mile dragon. Some of these are miles and miles big, just the tendon ball itself, the moon. So we've got even bigger creatures than Typhon, who was 1,100 miles long.